Welcome on the Heroes podcast today. I'm so excited. I have Kris Belfry here with me. And how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. Yourself?
Well, I'm excited from Europe. I wanted to introduce you first and then off we go into the content. So, as a
Sure.
coach and a healer, Kris is teaching and supporting people to live more consciously and consistently in their body, be more present in the moment, which ultimately creates a space for better listening. They can follow the wisdom and the guidance from the body so it can heal. He's doing this by teaching people to connect their mind and body by relaxing their nervous system, which helps to resolve chronic health issues, old wounds, traumas, and triggers so they can feel more balanced, calm, happier, and in better health. How exciting! I want to know about. Do you want to share your journey, Kris? How
Yeah.
did this start? I'm guessing that you could have been a few challenges to do this today, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me, I guess the biggest challenge was when I was 13. I was in a car accident and I almost died. And it was in that moment I really wanted to start helping people. And it was like a switch had kind of gone off. And I didn't know how that was going to be. I just was like, I went to university. I like two things. I like sports and, excuse me, science. So I went to school to be an exercise scientist, knowing, really studying the science of sport, not like the movement of it, it's the science of it. So it really was uh, awesome. But I also talked about like how science can obviously improve, obviously your weight, but your health in general. But the major doctor at the time, like my main doctor that taught us, the professor, was a doctor in psychology, had a sports psychology degree. And, so we talked about how even back in the 90s, early 90s or mid 90s, I guess, how the people were already using visualization for sports to enhance their sports, from golf to pitching and baseball. So, I just love that aspect. And I knew that, exercise was going to be kind of a starting point for something else. And my mom was seeing a chiropractor at the time, and she was saying like, this was kind of like, it sounds like how you're talking. You should really check this out. So I did. And I ultimately fell in love with chiropractic. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I went to chiropractic school. But in chiropractic school, I learned that I could help 75% of 75% of the people. And naively, I just wanted to help everybody. I'm like, well, that's just like smaller and smaller part of the pie. So I started studying every chiropractic technique I could. So I probably have studied over 20, 25 chiropractic techniques. I've since gone on and started studying another 20 esoteric techniques, from acupuncture to Reiki to energy work, mind body healing, really all sorts of things. And I ended up creating my own technique that was based on really energy and treating the body as a whole. So rather than just looking at it from like compartmentalizing, like I have this pain, then my pain is here, it was really looking at the body as a whole. So, the back pain might be coming from your digestion not working. It could be, how structurally you might be off, but not just the structure. It could be the bones, it could be the ligaments, the muscles, really looking at the bigger picture. But it also, I started to realize it could be your emotions. And as I started to really explore patients, and, had been in practice for, years at the time, what I started to notice was that some people I would, where they were good, I'd never see them again. Some people would come like, every, few months with the problem coming back. And then there's a small group of people that I was seeing all the time, like consistently. And that was my thing with chiropractic, is like, well, if you actually got to the root of the problem, then why do you have to keep coming back? And I was a symptom of that person, I had an extreme allergy to cats. Like if you had a cat, I would know within seconds. My breathing would be infected. If the cat touched me, I would get hives. Like it was a serious allergy. And in chiropractic school is great because if I'd been around a cat, I'd get adjusted, and then the symptoms, the asthmatic symptoms, would disappear or improve, and I could go on. But it would affect me for days to a good week and a half, this breathing. So I hated being around cats, so I just avoided them. But you never know. Like everyone has a cat once you realize you're allergic to them. Especially, you're in university, you want to go to people's houses. Like I got to ask ahead of time, hey, you got a cat? So, but the symptoms would reduce. And, but I was still like next cat, I was still back to the square one. So that really was kind of a cost to me understanding like there's something deeper going on. So I wanted to learn more, and being this kid that asked a lot of why questions, it led me onto a journey to realize how, and seeing with my clients how emotions played a role. So, any kind of therapy, any kind of treatment therapists that you spend some time with, people become, you become their therapist. They talk to you about their family life, their, their relationships, their, sometimes maybe their childhood. So you start to kind of see trends in how people, those that weren't getting better, were affected a lot to the stress that's happening now, or possibly in our past. And so that's really what got me into understanding health in a different, broader perspective, looking at more at the emotional aspect of it. And so I started looking into learning how I can help people that way. And so I since realized that, that makes up a big part of it. So people that are going and they just can't seem to get ahead, they're like stuck where they've been to a therapist, and it's just kind of like, I kind of can't get beyond that spot, or, or I just can't seem to get better. I just kind of always going back. Those are often related to some kind of, an emotion that they're either currently in, or maybe a childhood trauma that they may have to uh, relax or let go of. And it's not like, when I say trauma, it doesn't have to be, trauma with a capital T. It's really just could be a hurt. You could be chasing dad love, or you could have been, a middle child and not feel loved at all. I mean, I've had people that they felt not good enough because um, their their parents had another child and they're the older child, and they felt, well, if you have to have another child, I must not be good enough. So it's not even something that's necessarily done to you, but it's how you interpret or felt it in your life. And so that kind of really what created or evolved into creating what I do now. And it's teaching people online how to get out of the hamster wheel that's constantly going on in your head. You're in your head so much, it's really getting out of your head into your body and relaxing that nervous system, getting you out of that constant fight or flight mode that we're often triggered to be in.
Love it. There's so much commonality in what you do and I do.
Yeah.
And did you have found there is specific emotions are showing up in specific ways as far as illness or sickness? Did you find any themes or
Yeah.
patterns?
Yeah. It's interesting how patterns show up in the body. I mean, even just like, you know, if people have like a hip that's high on the right, it would cause bladder issues, peeing, bladder stuff. And, often, depends on the situation, emotions, it triggers, and it just depends, and could be being some anger that they're holding on to at times. And it really just depends on how the body positions. But yeah, there's, having seen people for so long, there's so many different cool patterns that you started to notice. People that have a hard time letting go, like me just touching them, they get like triggered. It's really interesting to see. And so I'm like, oh, do you have a hard time letting go of things? Yeah, yeah, I do. Or how the body shifts, maybe high hip on the left causes digestive issues. So they tend to have a hard time letting go of things. And so there's really definitely a pattern that happens, not just, you know, um, like in the body, but physically as well. Right. So it's interesting just how it's one big system. So how we think like, your constipation, you think, well, it's got to be related to the food I'm eating, maybe, or maybe the medication I'm taking, or just, a lifetime of it. But really could be deeper than that. It's something you may be holding on to, or you have a hard time letting go of things. And, it's just an interesting pattern. I had a client who, she had all these points, about having constipation, like her colon is digestive, all these things. And I'm like, you sure you don't have constipation? You have a hard time letting go? Nope. no, no problem. Nothing's a problem. And then at the end I said, you sure there's no constipation? I said, do you go every day? She's like, no, I go every Sunday at 7 p.m. I'm like, what? That's constipation. And she's like, no, I do it. That's been like my whole life. I said, so the food on Monday at breakfast sits in your digestion till Sunday night. And it's not even like she could set her alarm to it like 7 p.m. It wasn't like I go on Sunday. It's 7 at Sunday nights. I mean, like, that's not healthy, but to her, it was in her mind, it's been my life pattern. And it was, it's cool to see how your body talks to you, and do we listen? And so part of what I do is just help people to listen to their bodies, and your body will tell you exactly what it needs and what it wants, from what you want to eat to, what you need to hear. And it's just kind of listening for it.
Powerful. I believe in daily routines, but
Yeah.
if you would look at these symptoms, would you say what percentage is caused by so-called psychosomatics, or let's say emotions or unresolved events? What would you say? People come to you, is it all psychological, or what percentage would you say?
It's hard to me, I think it's likely 100%, there's some kind of pattern that they keep running.
Hmm.
But some people don't want to necessarily dive into that, so for me, I've been able to, having the chiropractic background, I can still, tippy toe, especially when I first started talking about emotions. When I first got it, this was like in the 90s. I mean, so I started practicing, or not 90s, in the 2000s. So I started practicing in 2003, and probably by 2005, I was, getting into emotions, and 2007, 8 is really into it hard. But people back then, if I said that, your back pain, and I remember a lady, her back pain was related to some childhood abuse and from her uncle. And if I would have said that, she would have been like out of my office so quick. So I talked to her about, it's being because her back is, hips are out of alignment, or whatever I said back then, to make her feel comfortable. But what was really cool is that when I released that, I helped her release it. So she released that, she ended up having a conversation with her uncle, because, she would go to a summer family reunion every year and see him. Like, can you imagine reliving that trauma? Every summer, he's there, and so she finally had some closure. And sure enough, the back pain, once she let it go, but it also gave her the freedom to have that conversation with him to, to complete the story. And I'm not saying that people have to do that, but that was something that, in her mind, she always wanted to do. And it was funny. And because in her mind, she always wanted to do it. She just never had didn't have the space, the emotions was too strong. And as she let go of that, she was now able to have that conversation, because that was her choice. She always wanted to. And so in her mind, she never related to the treatment, because in her mind, she just came here for back pain, and so it's, knowing what I know now, now, and seeing that, I knew it at the time, but it was just, those are the things that amaze me about, and what amazed me early on, and, how I developed, to what I do today. It was those stories.
Would you say learnings or release is unconscious, where some of the clients are thinking that other factors have contributed to their healing, that they wouldn't even really know the root that you have
Yeah.
released or resolved? I tend to see that.
So do they have to know? Is that what you're, sorry, does that to?
No, but do you see that they are able to connect the dots the way you can?
Yeah. I think more now, obviously, people are a little bit more self-aware and more present and more conscious of the idea of how emotions play a role. So yeah, you definitely, today I see it a lot more. And people don't have to connect the dots, and you don't have to know the story, because it's not therapy, right? You don't have to, some of these stories people have, it's, you know, tough. And it's not sit there where you have to review the story and I think that only adds to your pain. And so a lot of what's hiding underneath the fear, because, a lot of people say that fear is like, the ultimate, there's love and fear. But really, if you look at like, Hawkins' maps of consciousness, shame sits at way below fear. So people have a lot of embarrassment and shame around a lot of what had gone on. And so it's really getting deeper into letting that go rather than just the fear of it is what's stopping you to hide from to protect you. Your ego, your story is just there to protect you from experiencing some pain. And it's really just, unraveling that and not necessarily going through the story of it. And so, I had a client who'd been to therapy and she's like, oh yeah, she was abused by her cousin, I think it was. I don't remember. And she came for me with back pain as well. And through conversing, I realized that she hadn't fully let go of some of this stuff. She's like, oh yeah, I totally let go of it. And so we worked through that. Back pain resolved. And she came back. She's like, Kris, and the next call, she's like, Kris, I love men. I'm like, well, yeah, because I always thought you dating. She's like, no, you don't get it. I love men. I'm like, well, that's wonderful. She's like, no, there was always some resistance to fully opening up to men because she hadn't fully letting go of part of that abuse that happened. And and it's so common and that people don't want to look at because it's really tough to look at, because people, it's partly leads to some of that shame and guilt. And so it's the most powerful. As soon as we let go, all of a sudden people are like, oh my God. Women often just, because they've done a lot of the work on that. And those are just that instance. And that's not the whole business. And you don't have to have that kind of severe trauma to see me.
So how do you
Although
feel?
it affects so many people, both men and women.
So how do you feel when these life-changing breakthroughs happen that you probably know it would have a lasting effect for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, it's that's why I do it. It brings like, just to see the smile, like the color come back on people's faces, like, uh, I sat even in workshops where, where people's, and I've seen it just in my clients where they look younger, they feel younger. I sat in a workshop where a guy, did some writing a letter, and the guy was my partner, and we were to write a letter and read it to each other. And the guy looked about 60 and he was probably 40. It was a big, like he had all these wrinkles and he looked old. He was abused, all his abuse, I don't know. He was abused as well, and by his uncle or some man. And he talked about that. And I'm not lying, it was like these wrinkles just left his face in this hour of just having this conversation with him. And it was like a night and day, and it was like a totally different person. Like the wrinkles are gone. He started to glow again. It was just like the life was back in him. And that's just exciting to see that, like regardless if it's just a small aha moment where, someone who had anxiety can, go to a wedding that she's been afraid to go to because of his anxiety's holding her back, to, this guy who, saw light and day difference of like how that one instance is just holding them back in so many areas of his life. It's amazing. It's a gift, and not for them, but for them to I'm just the conduit. I say, I just, the orchestrator, help you along the way here and guide you. But you do the work, see the aha moments, and it's you being, honoring you. Sometimes people want to expect like this miracle, but that's not what everyone's going to get. I mean, everyone thinks they're going to lose 50 pounds because I had one person that did it, or lose 20 pounds off their face or 20 years off their face. That's, that's not everybody, but what you do see is all of a sudden it's like honoring the little things, because it's the little things that over time accumulate for some. That's like, where all of a sudden you're like more present with your family that you've never been before, because people take that for granted because they're always on their phone or busy, just doing, and rather than actually being with your family, and those are the things people need to, it's the subtle things that people need to be, honoring themselves for as well.
Wow, wonderful example. I came across Chinese, I think it was Chinese face reading, something like that, and they worked out each parts of the face or
Yeah,
wrinkles has its roots in certain traumas and emotions, and you may have come across that too. Uh, did you investigate or did you study that or not?
no, I didn't study that, but I am familiar because I've come across that. Yeah, absolutely. But no, I mean, that's some great detail to study that, like um the
What
amount of people you have to be able to see, and just to,
what came across my mind is that how much clarity that would give to each practitioner when there is the proof on the
sure,
face,
for
what we
sure.
need to work on. But even then, some people are not open or not ready. So tell
That's
me,
the key. I don't think it's I don't think it's, because there's so many great things. It's just really the person has to take that step forward, and regardless of the tool you use, like you, whatever you find value, if something's not working or works for a while, then try something different, and that's um yeah, that's the key, I would say, regardless of the, because I got in that stuck mode of like always looking, searching for answers. The answers are within, and just use yourself as a guide, and um whatever resonates for you. Yeah.
so looking into the future,
Yeah.
Kris, what would you like to celebrate in 5 years' time if things go well for you?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, a vision I've had for a long time. I mean, as much as I love online, I love group, and I lead a group, online group, which is great. But I want to be, part of like growing a worldwide audience, is to bring this energy into a room, create a retreat of just like, you know, amazing, retreat. And that's really, I do it on a smaller scale, but that's my dream. And I have some ideas of even going somewhere, and adding to this process of how we can make it into something greater. Yeah.
I love the idea because
Yeah.
group dynamic, I think if people feel safe, the environment in itself becomes transforming to really have that energy of feeling safe, dropping the masks, and allow transformation to almost take place by itself.
Right.
Hmm. So, how do we find out about you? Do you have some giveaway or a book that
Yeah. So thanks. Yeah. So people can go to my website, at belfrywellness.com, and there I am just finishing up, almost there. Will hopefully, keep saying that soon, to have a book, 12 ways to relax your nervous system. So it's, kind of putting on the end stages, so it should be out soon. And so I would just recommend people jumping on my email list, and they'll have first access to the book. And likely it's going to be a free book for them. So yeah, that'll be something that they can actually get their hands on, or anywhere. Find me on social media. Really, I've got over 100 YouTube videos, Instagram. I post stuff. So those are some ways that people can reach out. And if you're interested in learning more, reach out. I offer a free discovery call, see if and how I can help them. If not, I'll guide them to someone else if I can. But yeah, those are some ways. I work people through a 7-week course and teaching people. It's called Awaken the Inner Healer, where they can really learn to start letting shit go and putting some of the stuff putting themselves to some work and getting to the root of calming the nervous system and learning the tools of how to do that and how they can move forward.
That's so exciting. And tell me, what is your goal to give away? If I ask you, what are the 3 things that you say is so important for you to share that we cannot finish this interview for people who are maybe dealing with some triggers, some
Yeah.
sort of, it feels off. It feels like
Yeah.
something is out of place, can't fit in.
Right. So the first thing is really just like pausing, right? Take a pause and then just start to be aware of this, because a lot of us are on this hamster wheel constantly going, and we don't, it's just that, having that awareness first that you're on the hamster wheel, and then taking that pause and then starting to, okay, what's going on in my head, and realize like you're not that person. That's just the story. You actually, the more you kind of connect, but let's make it nice and simple. Just realize you're on the hamster wheel. Realize your mind's going. Pause and just take 5 nice deep breaths in and out. You're instantly calming your nervous system. And when when your nervous system's more calm, you're more present. So you're more in your body, you're more present in your mind, and then move from that space. So whether you're triggered or you're encountering some kind of stress, pause. 5 nice deep breaths, big belly breaths, 5 nice belly breaths. Get yourself more present and calm, and then make that choice. That would be one real positive tool I would recommend for people. I don't know if I can recommend anything, that would be it. Yeah.
Well, I hear you. To create that gap, I sometimes call in consciousness, to not react,
Right.
to really be aware of what's going on.
Right.
So I found, and you might want to reflect on this, a lot of people are reacting, then even more probably are in avoidance mode. And
Sure.
that leads to distractions, addictions, all types of strange behaviors.
Right.
Do you want to expand on this?
Yeah. And that's totally, there's not much other than just don't judge yourself. Just it starts with awareness that you're doing those, right? Until we realize we're on this hamster wheel going nowhere, or we're going the same spot, it's really recognizing that it's really an inside game. Changing the outside is not going to do anything to the inside. So by, getting a blonde versus a brunette doesn't change anything. Buying a bigger house, with your on the lake, your dream house isn't going to change anything unless you change the inside. So that house is going to be what you always wanted until you move into it, till it just becomes a house. Just like the last house, just like your last car, then your new car. And, a new baby isn't going to bring more joy into your life and a relationship. Yet people keep trying that, right? It's not, that's not what's going to do it. Is that you have to love yourself. You have to realize it's all starts within, and you that know that better than anyone, is that it really starts with your self-worth and loving yourself and filling your own cup. If your own cup's not full, how could you fill anyone else's? So it's really about understanding it's an inside game. So, and not to judge yourself. Whether it's an addiction or wherever you're at, and just you recognize that's what you're doing. It's just, okay. And then choosing something different. And then falling back, you're going to realize like, oh, shit, I'm back to drinking. Recognize, okay, cool. I did it again. Or, sex or porn addiction or whatever addiction we use to get us out of our out of our bodies, out of our minds. It just keeps us busy, busy work, whatever we do for, these addictions. So yeah, absolutely. Just stop and don't judge, just recognize it, because when you judge, you're beating yourself up, and that's only, adding to it. So just recognize you did it, just like if it was like a child, treat it like a child, and be honest with yourself. Just recognize it.
Yeah, allow yourself that space where
Yep.
the truth, I think, admitting the truth is such a powerful concept, because that leads to change or new awareness. Well, it was wonderful to have you as a guest.
Thank you. It was wonderful being here, and
Yeah, I really loved this conversation. I would love to continue it. And I still want to give you back one more time the mic. If there's anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap it up.
No, I mean, yeah, thanks. The only thing I would say is, looking back in my own life, a few things, that I've learned and the hard way is that, learning never ends. You're constantly in a state of growth. And, I got to a point in my life, well, I kind of know everything, I thought I did, or I was stuck, and then my marriage ended, and that was like another wake-up call for me. So you realize that life is always, there for you to learn more. So it doesn't end, and it really best, to find someone else, to find help, reach out, whether it's, start to make a difference, talk to other people, right? Ask for help, just like if anything, that's what's key.
Wonderful. And thank you very much, Kris.
Yeah, thanks for
Lovely
having
being
me.
here.
Yeah.
I will have all your details under the video. So guys, here's the man. Reach out, have a chat with him, and find out where you are holding yourself back and what needs to let go. So
Absolutely.
you have a new version of your health, but then normally that leads to a new version of life.
Right. Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.